Alara had been running for 3 days straight when exhaustion finally caught up with her body and sent her stumbling forward into the darkness. Her boots caught on a twisted root she should have seen coming, but her vision was swimming at the edges and her legs were shaking with fatigue that went bone deep. She pitched forward with a gasp that didn't have enough air behind it to qualify as a scream. She never hit the ground. Strong arms caught her mid-fall, arms that belonged to someone massive and warm and solid, someone who shouldn't have been there in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. Someone who moved faster than any human could move and smelled like pine and leather and something wild that made her hindbrain wake up and pay attention in a way it never had before. She was pulled against a bare chest, hard muscle and heat and a heartbeat that thundered against her ear like war drums. His skin was fever warm under her cheek. Large hands steadied her with a sureness that suggested he'd caught falling things before. One arm around her waist holding her weight easily like she was nothing more than a child. The other cradling the back of her head with a gentleness that didn't match the raw power she could feel coiled in his frame. His fingers threaded through her hair carefully, avoiding the tangles from 3 days of running. The world tilted and steadied at once. Her senses, which had been dulled by exhaustion, suddenly sharpened to almost painful clarity. She could hear his breathing. Controlled, but faster than it should be, like catching her had affected him too. Could feel the tension in his muscles, the way his body had gone completely still the moment his hands made contact with her. Like touching her had frozen him in place. Like something significant had just happened that he was still processing. Alara's vision cleared enough to process what was happening. She was being held by a man, a very large man. His skin was warm under her cheek. His scent was everywhere, overwhelming her exhausted senses. And he was growling, low and deep and continuous like distant thunder. She tried to pull back, tried to remember her training about never showing weakness in enemy territory. But her legs wouldn't support her weight, and his arms tightened reflexively when she moved. Easy. His voice was deep enough that she felt it in her chest. Command wrapped in concern. I've got you. Those 3 words shouldn't have made her feel safe. She was in Ironpeak territory. She was Shadowmoon's last heir. She should be terrified, should be fighting or running or doing anything except melting against this stranger's chest, like her body had been waiting her whole life for exactly this moment. His scent wrapped around her again, and something inside her chest that had been dormant and silent for 22 years suddenly stirred. Her wolf. The beast that had never emerged despite years of trying, despite her father's patient teaching and her own desperate attempts. Her wolf woke up and pressed against her consciousness with one crystal-clear certainty. Mate. No, that wasn't possible. Mate bonds were rare. Happened maybe once in 1,000 wolves. Certainly didn't happen to refugees who stumbled into enemy territory half dead from exhaustion. Her wolf had to be confused, had to be responding to his obvious power and her own vulnerability and mistaking protection for something deeper. But then he moved, shifted his grip so he could tilt her face up toward his, and Alara got her first real look at the man who'd caught her. He was maybe 30. Dark hair that fell past his shoulders, strong features carved from bronze skin that suggested mixed heritage and northern bloodlines, a mouth that could have been sensual if it wasn't currently pressed into a hard line of control. And eyes. Dear gods, his eyes. Amber, glowing amber that lit up the darkness around them like torches. Wolf eyes, alpha eyes, eyes that were locked on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch and her heart stutter and her dormant wolf whine with recognition. Mine. He said it so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Almost could have pretended it was the wind or her imagination or exhaustion playing tricks. But his eyes flared brighter when he said it, and his grip tightened, and the growling in his chest shifted to something that sounded almost like a purr. Mine, he repeated, louder this time. Definite, like he was announcing a fact to the universe and daring anything to disagree. Alara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her wolf was going absolutely feral, pressing against her skin, demanding she shift, demanding she respond, demanding she claim him back. But she couldn't shift, had never shifted, didn't know how. And even if she could, the logical part of her brain was screaming that this was wrong, this was dangerous. This was an alpha from the pack that had spent 15 years hunting her and her father, and now she was pressed against his chest while he called her his like he had any right to claim her. Let me go. Her voice came out weaker than she wanted. Breathy and uncertain and not at all commanding. No. Simple. Absolute. His hand moved from her waist to the small of her back, pressing her closer. You're exhausted, dehydrated, about 30 seconds from collapse, and you're in my territory without permission or protection. His eyes tracked over her face, cataloging details. When did you last sleep? That's not your concern. Everything about you is my concern now. He shifted his grip, and before she could process what was happening, he'd scooped her up completely, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back, carrying her like she weighed nothing. You're coming with me. Put me down. She tried to sound firm, tried to channel her father's command voice, but her body was betraying her, relaxing into his hold, her head falling against his shoulder because holding it up took more energy than she had left. I don't know you. I don't trust you. And I'm not going anywhere with an Ironpeak wolf. He started walking, each step smooth and controlled despite the uneven forest floor and the fact that he was carrying a full-grown woman. My name is Kieran Blackthorn, Alpha King of Ironpeak, and you're coming to my home where you'll be fed and cleaned and put in my bed where you can sleep for as long as your body needs. Your bed? That cut through the exhaustion fog. Absolutely not. I'm not sleeping in your bed. Yes, you are. Matter of fact. Like it was already decided and her opinion was irrelevant. Because you're my mate, and my mate sleeps in my bed where I can protect her and care for her and make sure she never runs herself into the ground like this again. I'm not your mate. She tried to sound convincing, tried to ignore the way her wolf was practically singing at his declaration. You don't know me, I don't know you. We just met 60 seconds ago. 60 seconds ago, my whole world changed. He looked down at her, and the intensity in those glowing amber eyes stole what little breath she had left. 60 seconds ago, I caught the scent of home and destiny and everything I never knew I was missing. My wolf knew you instantly, recognized you, claimed you, and I don't fight my wolf when he's this certain. That's not how it works. But her voice lacked conviction because her own wolf was saying the exact same thing, was screaming mate with a certainty that terrified her. Mate bonds are rare, take time to develop, don't just happen because you caught someone falling. They happen, he said quietly, when the right two wolves meet. Age doesn't matter, circumstance doesn't matter. When it's right, it's instant and absolute and undeniable. His arms tightened fractionally around her, protective, possessive. Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me your wolf isn't calling me mate right now. Tell me you didn't recognize me the moment my hands touched you. She couldn't, because it would be a lie, and she'd never been good at lying, especially when her body was melting into his warmth and her wolf was purring with contentment, and some treacherous part of her was thinking that maybe running was over. Maybe she'd found what her father always said she'd find someday. Maybe this massive alpha carrying her through the darkness like she was precious and fragile, and his to protect was exactly what her exhausted soul needed. I'm Shadowmoon, she whispered. Last defense, last wall. You're Ironpeak. Our packs have been enemies for generations. Your people killed mine. My mother was killed by Shadowmoon rogues when I was 10. His jaw tightened, but his hold on her never wavered. I lost warriors in the conflicts that followed, lost friends, lost family. I have every reason to hate your bloodline. He looked down at her again, and something in his expression softened. But you're not them. You're not the rogues who murdered innocents. You're my mate, and I will kill anyone who tries to use old grudges as an excuse to hurt you. Tears burned behind her eyes. 3 days of running, 3 days of terror and exhaustion and grief, her father's last words echoing in her memory. Run, little moon, never look back. And now here she was being carried by an enemy alpha who called her his mate and promised protection she desperately needed but couldn't afford to trust. I'm going to pass out, she heard herself say. Not a complaint, just a fact. Her body had reached its limit, and consciousness was starting to slip away at the edges. Then pass out. His voice dropped to something gentle and commanding at once. I've got you, and I'm not letting go. Not now, not ever. The last thing she registered before darkness took her was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the warmth of his arms and the absolute certainty in his voice when he said not ever. Like it was a vow, like it was destiny, like maybe it was true. When Alara woke, she was warm for the first time in days, comfortable, safe, surrounded by softness and heat and a scent that made her dormant wolf stir with contentment before her conscious mind even fully engaged. She kept her eyes closed for a long moment, just processing sensation, letting herself exist in this space between sleep and awareness where nothing hurt and everything felt right. Silk sheets against her skin, cool and smooth and expensive beyond anything she'd ever owned, multiple pillows under her head, soft down that cradled her skull and neck perfectly, furs piled on top of her, thick and warm and heavy enough to feel like security. They must have cost a fortune, real fur from animals hunted and tanned and treated with care, not the synthetic materials most packs use these days. And underneath it all, woven through every breath she took, the clean scent of soap and herbs mixed with something else, something masculine and wild and familiar in a way that made no logical sense but felt absolutely right at a cellular level. Pine and leather, the alpha, Kieran. His scent was everywhere. On the sheets she was lying in, on the furs covering her, on the pillows under her head, in the very air of the room, like he'd spent time here recently, like this was his space and his territory and his domain, like she was sleeping in the heart of his den where his presence was strongest and most concentrated. Her wolf stirred again, stretched like waking from a long sleep, and purred, actually purred with contentment at being surrounded by her mate's scent, at being safe and warm and protected in his territory. The beast that had been dormant and silent for 22 years was suddenly awake and vocal and absolutely certain about exactly where she wanted to be. Here, in his den, in his bed, covered in his scent, waiting for him to return. Her eyes flew open and she sat up so fast her vision swam. She was in a massive bed, 4 posters carved from dark wood. Heavy curtains pulled back to let in morning light from floor to ceiling windows. The room was enormous. Stone walls hung with tapestries showing wolves and forests and battles. A fireplace large enough to stand in. Furniture that looked ancient and expensive. This wasn't a guest room. This was someone's private chambers. His chambers. She looked down at herself and felt her cheeks flush hot. She was clean. Someone had bathed her while she was unconscious. Her hair smelled like herbs, and her skin was soft, and she was wearing an oversized white shirt that definitely wasn't hers. It hit her mid-thigh, and the sleeves fell past her hands, and when she brought the collar to her nose, the scent that filled her lungs was pure alpha male. He'd dressed her in his shirt. His scent was all over her. Anyone with a functioning nose would know instantly that she'd been in his bed wearing his clothes, surrounded by his scent. Scent marking. That's what this was. Claiming behavior. Making sure every wolf in this territory knew she belonged to him before she even woke up. She should be furious. Should be scrambling out of this bed and demanding her own clothes and putting as much distance between herself and this presumptuous alpha as possible. But her wolf was practically rolling in happiness, was preening at being covered in her mate's scent, was purring with satisfaction at being in his territory surrounded by his protection. "Traitor wolf, you're awake." Alara's head snapped toward the sound and her breath caught. Kieran stood in the doorway, shirtless. His chest was exactly as impressive as she'd felt when he carried her. Defined muscles and bronze skin and a few scars that suggested he'd seen combat. Dark pants rode low on his hips. His feet were bare. His hair was loose around his shoulders. And his eyes. Those glowing amber eyes were locked on her with an intensity that made heat pool in her stomach. "You bathed me." She aimed for accusation, but it came out breathy and uncertain. "I did." He moved into the room with predatory grace, each step deliberate and controlled. "You were covered in 3 days of dirt and blood and exhaustion. You needed to be clean so your body could heal properly. You could have let a female healer do it." "No." Simple. Absolute. He stopped at the edge of the bed looking down at her. "No one touches my mate but me. No one sees you vulnerable but me. No one cares for you but me." His eyes traveled over her wearing his shirt, and something possessive flared in their depths. "You're mine to protect, mine to care for, mine. You can't just claim someone you met 5 minutes ago." "I can. I did. And I'll do it again every time you question it until you accept what we both know is true." He sat on the edge of the bed and the mattress dipped under his weight. "Your wolf knows. I can see it in your eyes. Feel it in the way you respond to me. You recognized me the moment we touched. Mate bonds don't lie. Mate bonds are supposed to be mutual. She pulled the sheets up higher, even though his shirt covered her completely, some instinct to protect herself from the intensity of his gaze. I don't remember agreeing to be your mate. You will. Confident, certain. He reached out slowly like he was approaching a frightened animal and tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her jaw, warm and calloused and gentle. Your body knows even if your mind is fighting it. Give yourself time. Let yourself feel what's real. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. You can't keep me prisoner. But her voice lacked heat because his touch felt so right it scared her. You're not a prisoner. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're my mate, my queen, the most important person in my world from this moment forward. But I won't let you run, won't let you put yourself in danger, won't let you deny what we both feel because you're scared of losing someone else. That hit too close. She pulled back from his touch, trying to regain some distance, some control. You don't know me, don't know what I've lost, don't presume to understand what I'm feeling. Then tell me. He didn't move closer, but he didn't retreat either. Tell me about the settlement that burned, about running for 3 days, about being alone and hunted and exhausted beyond endurance. Tell me about your father. The mention of her father cracked something in her chest. How do you know about my father? You said his name in your sleep. Kieran's expression gentled. You were dreaming, calling out for him, crying. I couldn't wake you, couldn't comfort you. All I could do was hold you and promise I'd keep you safe. His jaw tightened. Tell me what happened. She should refuse, should keep her grief private and her vulnerabilities hidden. But something about the way he looked at her, the genuine concern mixed with barely restrained protectiveness, the way his hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but was giving her space to choose, it broke her resolve. The rogues came at dawn 3 days ago. Her voice came out small. They knew the settlement layout, knew where the healers would be. My father was chief medical officer. They targeted him first. She swallowed against the tightness in her throat. He held them off long enough for me to run, told me to never look back, told me to survive. And you ran here. Kieran's voice was rough with suppressed emotion, into Ironpeak territory. It was the last place they'd look for me, the most dangerous option which made it the safest. She met his eyes. I came here to hide, to disappear. Not to be claimed by an alpha king who thinks meeting me once means forever. It does mean forever. He moved closer, eliminating the distance she'd tried to create. His hand cupped her face, tilting it up to his. Your father told you to survive. I'm ensuring you survive. My protection, my territory, my strength. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and her breath hitched. My bed. My scent on your skin, my mark on your soul. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine with everything I am. This is insane! But she didn't pull away, couldn't pull away. His touch was fire and lightning, and every instinct in her body was screaming to lean into it instead of fighting it. We're supposed to be enemies. We're mates. He leaned closer until his forehead rested against hers, until she could feel his breath on her lips, until the space between them was charged with something that felt inevitable. Nothing else matters, not history, not bloodlines, not old wars fought by people who are dead. You're mine, and I'm yours. That's the only truth that matters. She should argue, should push him away, should remember all the reasons this was wrong. But her wolf was singing. Her body was leaning into him, and when his lips brushed against hers, soft and questioning and full of barely restrained hunger, she stopped thinking entirely. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, giving her a chance to retreat. But the moment she sighed against his mouth, something in him snapped. His hand moved to the back of her head, holding her still while he deepened the kiss. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him. And Alara stopped fighting, stopped questioning, stopped being afraid. She kissed him back with 3 days of exhaustion and grief and desperate need for connection. Her hands found his bare chest, and she felt his heart thundering under her palm, felt the way his muscles tensed when she touched him, felt the raw power coiled in his frame that he was keeping leashed for her sake. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His eyes were glowing bright amber, his pupils blown wide, his control clearly hanging by a thread. "Mine," he breathed against her lips, statement and question at once, and something in her chest that had been tight and locked for days finally loosened. Finally accepted what her wolf had known from the moment he caught her falling. "Yours," she whispered back. The growl that rumbled through his chest was pure satisfaction. The moment was shattered by a sharp knock on the door. Kieran's head snapped toward the sound, and a warning growl built in his throat, low and dangerous and clearly communicating "do not disturb." "Alpha!" The voice from the other side was male, respectful but insistent. "The beta requests an immediate audience. It's about the female." Kieran's arms tightened around Alara protectively. "Tell Marcus I'm busy. He says it's urgent. Council is demanding answers. They can wait." Kieran's tone left no room for argument. "Tell Marcus if he values his throat, he'll give me another hour alone with my mate." There was a pause, then footsteps retreating quickly. Apparently whoever delivered that message knew better than to push an alpha who'd just found his mate. Kieran turned back to Alara, and some of the fierce protectiveness in his expression softened. "I'm sorry. The pack will have questions about your presence here, about us. I was hoping to give you more time before dealing with politics." "They'll want me gone," she said it matter of fact. No judgment, just reality. "I'm Shadowmoon. I'm the enemy." "You're my mate." He cupped her face in both hands, making sure she was looking directly at him. "That makes you untouchable, sacred. Anyone who threatens you threatens me. Anyone who demands your exile will answer to me personally." His eyes flared bright. "I don't care what the council wants. I don't care about old grudges or political concerns. You are mine, and no force in this world will take you from me." The absolute certainty in his voice made her throat tight. "You barely know me." "I know enough." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Gentle, reverent. "I know you're brave enough to run for 3 days straight. Strong enough to keep going when your body was shutting down. Smart enough to find safety in the most unlikely place. And I know my wolf chose you. That's enough. That's everything." "The council won't see it that way." "The council will see what I tell them to see." His expression hardened. "But they're right that we need to deal with this. Marcus will demand to know who you are, where you came from, whether you're a threat." His thumb brushed across her jaw. "Are you ready to face them? Or do you need more time?" She wanted more time, wanted to stay in this room where she felt safe and wanted and claimed. But hiding wouldn't change reality, wouldn't make the questions go away. "I'll face them, but I need my own clothes, not your shirt." "You look perfect in my shirt." Possessive satisfaction colored his tone. "Every wolf in this territory will smell me on you and know you're mine." "Exactly." She pushed at his chest. "That's called scent marking, claiming behavior. We just met 8 hours ago." 10 hours. He caught her hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm. "You were unconscious for 10 hours. And yes, I'm claiming you. I'll claim you every way there is until you stop questioning whether you're mine." Heat flooded her cheeks. "You're very presumptuous for an alpha I didn't ask to claim me." "You kissed me back." His eyes danced with something that might have been amusement if it wasn't so predatory. "You said you were mine. You're not taking that back now." "I was exhausted and confused, and you're very overwhelming." "I know." He leaned in until his lips brushed the shell of her ear. "And I'm going to be overwhelming every single day until you accept that this is real, that we're real, that you belong with me." He nipped her earlobe gently and she gasped. "Now, your clothes are in the wardrobe, clean and mended, but I want you to keep wearing my shirt under them, against your skin, so you remember whose you are even when I'm not touching you." "That's..." She couldn't find words. Possessive, dominant, completely insane. "Fine, whatever. Just give me privacy to change." "No." He stood, but his hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. "I'm not leaving you alone. Marcus will be back soon, and I need to make sure you're protected. I'll turn around, give you privacy, but I'm staying in this room." She should argue, should demand actual privacy. But the look in his eyes said arguing would be pointless. And some part of her didn't want him to leave, didn't want to be alone, wanted his overwhelming presence nearby, even if it scared her how much she wanted it. "Turn around," she muttered. He turned, but she caught him glancing back twice before she had the shirt off and her own clothes on. When she was dressed, she found he'd been right. Her clothes had been cleaned and mended. Her healer's satchel was on a chair in the corner. Someone had taken care of her belongings with the same careful attention they'd taken with her. "I'm decent." He turned and his eyes traveled over her with clear appreciation. "You're beautiful, but I still prefer you in my shirt." Before she could respond, another knock sounded, harder this time, more insistent. "Alpha, the beta says the council is threatening to remove her by force if you don't bring her now." Kieran's expression went deadly. "Tell Marcus if anyone lays a hand on my mate, I'll remove their hand from their wrist, permanently. He says to remind you that pack law requires explanation for harboring enemies. She's not an enemy. She's my mate. That's the only explanation they need." But Kieran sighed and looked at Alara. "We have to deal with this. I'm sorry. I wanted you to have more time." "It's fine." She straightened her shoulders, drawing on 15 years of her father's training. "I can handle their questions." "I know you can." He moved close and tipped her chin up with one finger. "But understand something. You're not facing them alone. I'll be beside you every moment. And if any of them threatens you or questions your right to be here, I'll remind them exactly who rules this pack." "I thought you said they could have their opinions." "They can have opinions about everything except you. When it comes to my mate, I don't negotiate. I don't compromise. I protect what's mine." He kissed her quickly, possessive, claiming. "Ready?" She wasn't, but she nodded anyway. The walk through the citadel was intimidating. Stone corridors lit by torches, warriors passing by who stopped and stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to hostility. Kieran kept her slightly behind him, his body positioned between her and every potential threat. His hand was at the small of her back, possessive, protective, claiming her in front of every witness. By the time they reached the council room, she was acutely aware that every wolf in this territory now knew two things. She was here, and she was the alphas. The council room was smaller than she expected, but no less intimidating for it. A table carved from single piece of ancient oak surrounded by high-backed chairs. 5 council members already seated, 3 males, 2 females, all older, all watching her with expressions that ranged from suspicion to outright hostility. And standing beside the table with his arms crossed and his jaw tight, a man who had to be Marcus. 30 maybe, heavily muscled in the way of career warriors, hard eyes that assessed her like a threat to be neutralized, beta written in every line of his body and every ounce of his posture. Marcus's eyes locked on Alara, and his expression went carefully neutral. The kind of neutral that suggested he was working very hard to control whatever his actual feelings were. "Alpha, you brought her." "My mate's name is Alara." Kieran's tone could have frozen water, each word precise and cold and carrying the weight of command that suggested this wasn't a request or a suggestion. "You'll address her with respect, or you'll address no one again." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded once, sharp, controlled. "Alara, the council has concerns about your presence here." "I'm sure they do." She kept her voice steady, despite her racing heart, and the way every instinct was screaming at her to hide behind Kieran's bulk. "I'm Shadowmoon. I shouldn't be alive, certainly shouldn't be in Ironpeak territory, and absolutely shouldn't be standing in your council room wearing your alpha's scent like a brand." One of the female council members leaned forward, sharp features, gray hair pulled back severe, eyes that missed nothing. "At least she's honest about what she is. That's more than most enemies give us before they attack." "I'm not attacking anyone." Alara met the woman's gaze directly. "I'm barely standing. I ran for 3 days straight with rogues hunting me. My settlement is ash. My father is dead. My pack is destroyed. I came here because it was the only place the rogues wouldn't follow, the only place I might survive long enough to figure out what comes next. And you just happened to stumble into our alpha." Another council member, elderly male with shrewd eyes and a voice like gravel. "Just happened to collapse in his arms, just happened to trigger a mate bond that no one saw coming. Convenient." "Convenient would have been collapsing anywhere else." Alara's hands clenched at her sides. "Convenient would have been running into a pack that didn't have 15 years of bloodshed between us. Convenient would have been literally anything other than waking up in the bed of an alpha whose people hate mine." She took a breath, steadied herself. "But my wolf doesn't care about convenient, and apparently neither does his." "Yet here you are." The shrewd-eyed elder studied her. "Wearing the alpha's scent like a brand, as you said, sleeping in his chambers. The question everyone in this room wants answered is why? Why does our alpha claim an enemy as mate? Why does he risk his position and his authority for a female he's known less than a day? Why should we trust that this bond is real and not some trick or trap designed to put a Shadowmoon heir in a position of power over our pack? Because she's my mate. Kieran moved so he was partially blocking her from their view, protective, possessive. Recognized and claimed, pack law states a mate bond supersedes all other considerations. Pack law also states enemies harbor no sanctuary. Another council member, female, cold expression. She's Shadowmoon. Our people died fighting hers. My father was chief medical officer. Alara stepped around Kieran despite his warning growl. He spent 15 years trying to stop the bloodshed, trying to broker peace, and 3 days ago, rogues murdered him for it. Her voice stayed steady, controlled. I'm the last of my bloodline. I have no army, no pack, no power. I'm no threat to Ironpeak. Yet the Alpha claims you. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Convenient timing. Our enemy's heir appears in our territory, and within hours has our Alpha convinced she's his mate. The implication was clear. She was manipulating Kieran, using him. The mate bond was a lie. Kieran moved so fast, Alara barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next he had Marcus by the throat, pinned against the wall. His eyes blazed amber. His fangs were visible. The growl that rumbled from his chest was pure alpha dominance. You question my mate. Deadly quiet. You imply she's deceiving me. You stand in my council room and suggest I'm too weak or too stupid to recognize my own mate bond. His grip tightened, and Marcus's face started turning red. Give me one reason I shouldn't end you right now. Kieran! Alara's voice cut through his rage. Let him go! He insulted you. He questioned you. There's a difference. She moved closer, touching his arm. The contact made him shudder. Let him go, please. For a long moment, Kieran didn't move. Then slowly he released Marcus and stepped back. But his body stayed between Marcus and Alara, protective, claiming. Marcus rubbed his throat, glaring at Kieran with barely suppressed fury. The Council has a right to question unusual circumstances. The Council has a right to question tactical decisions and political alliances. Kieran's voice was cold. They have no right to question my mate. No right to imply she's manipulating me. No right to stand in my territory and demand I prove what my wolf knows absolutely. He turned to address the entire council. Alara Ashwood is my mate. That makes her your future Luna, your queen. She will be treated with the respect her position demands. Anyone who threatens her, anyone who questions her place here, anyone who makes her feel unwelcome in her own territory will answer to me personally. Am I clear? Silence. The council members exchanged glances. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but the hand-shaped bruises on his throat suggested that would be unwise. Finally, the elderly council member spoke. The mate bond supersedes our concerns. If you claim her as mate, then pack law protects her. But understand Alpha. If this proves false, if she's using you or playing games or working with our enemies, the consequences will fall on your head as well as hers. There's nothing false about this. Kieran moved to stand beside Alara. His hand found hers, and he laced their fingers together. She's mine. I'm hers. That's the only truth that matters. He pulled her close, and before she could process what was happening, his mouth was on hers. Kissing her in front of the council and Marcus and everyone who mattered in this pack, claiming her publicly, possessively, leaving absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that she belonged to him. The kiss was nothing like the gentle exploration in his chambers. This was claiming, pure and simple. His hand fisted in her hair, holding her exactly where he wanted her. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her body flush against his. His mouth moved over hers with confident possession. Not asking permission, not seeking approval, just taking what was his and making sure everyone watching understood exactly what they were seeing. Alara's hands came up to his chest. She should push him away, should protest this public display, should maintain some dignity in front of a council that already questioned her presence. But the moment his tongue swept into her mouth, her knees went weak, and her protests died, and she found herself kissing him back with a desperation that probably told everyone in the room exactly how affected she was. His wolf was in this kiss. She could feel it. The dominance, the possession, the absolute certainty that she was his, and no force on earth would change that. And her own dormant wolf responded. rose up inside her chest and pressed against her skin and purred with satisfaction at being claimed so thoroughly in front of witnesses. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His eyes blazed amber so bright they almost hurt to look at. His pupils were blown wide. His control was clearly hanging by a thread, and she knew without question that if they weren't standing in front of the council, he would have taken this claiming much further. "Mine," Kieran said to the room, to the council, to anyone who might question it. His eyes blazed amber. His arm was around her waist, holding her against him. "My mate, my queen, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." No one spoke, no one argued. And looking at the fierce, possessive determination in Kieran's expression, Alara understood why. He'd claimed her, publicly and completely, and nothing in this world was going to change his mind. The healing wing occupied the entire second floor of the North Tower. Large open spaces filled with treatment beds and medical supplies, windows letting in natural light, the scent of herbs and antiseptic, and underneath it all the faint copper tang of blood and illness. It should have felt clinical, professional, but with Kieran leaning against the doorway, watching her every move, it felt like something else entirely. Intimate, charged. Like even across 30 feet of open space, she could feel the weight of his gaze on her skin. Alara tried to focus on the young healer beside her. Lyra, 19 maybe, eager and nervous and asking questions faster than Alara could answer them. She was grinding willow bark for pain medication and doing it wrong. The pieces were too large, inconsistent. The final mixture would be bitter and harsh, and half the patients would vomit it back up within an hour. "You need to grind finer." Alara took the mortar and pestle, showing her the proper technique. "See how the texture changes? You want powder, not chunks, and add just a pinch of mint. It helps with gastric acceptance." Lyra watched with wide eyes, taking mental notes. "Where did you learn that?" "My father." The words still hurt. 3 days since his death. 3 days since her world ended. But saying his name out loud was getting easier, or maybe it was just that having Kieran nearby made everything easier. He was chief medical officer, spent 30 years perfecting formulations. The Shadowmoon chief medical officer. An older voice, male, somewhat grudging. Rowan, the head healer, approached with his arms crossed. "I've heard of him. His work on fever reduction was groundbreaking." He'd be pleased to know Ironpeak recognized his contributions. Alara kept her tone neutral. Professional. This was the first real conversation she'd had with anyone besides Kieran, and she wasn't going to waste it being defensive. Rowan studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "You're welcome to work here. We can always use skilled hands, especially with winter coming and the usual increase in training injuries." It was an olive branch, small but significant. Alara felt something tight in her chest, loosen fractionally. "Thank you. I'd like that." From across the room, she felt more than heard Kieran's low growl of approval. She glanced toward him and found those amber eyes locked on her with an intensity that made heat pool low in her stomach. He'd been there for 3 hours, hadn't moved except to shift his weight occasionally, hadn't spoken except to growl warning when male warriors got too close to her, just watched, constant, unwavering, possessive. It should have been annoying, should have felt intrusive, but every time she looked at him and found him watching her, something in her chest went warm and soft, and her wolf purred with contentment. A warrior entered this healing wing, young, maybe 25, favoring his left leg, training injury based on the way he walked. Broad shoulders, muscular build, the kind of warrior who'd spent years honing his body into a weapon. He nodded respectfully to Rowan, then his eyes found Alara and widened with recognition. "You're the one." His voice carried across the room, not hostile but intensely curious. "The Shadowmoon female the Alpha claimed." Before Alara could respond, Kieran was there, moving so fast she barely tracked the motion. One moment leaning against the doorway 30 feet away, the next standing between her and the warrior with his body radiating threat. His eyes blazing amber so bright they cast shadows. The growl that rumbled from his chest was pure alpha dominance. Deep enough to make the windows rattle, loud enough that every person in the healing wing froze and looked. "You'll address my mate with respect." Deadly quiet. The kind of quiet that suggested violence was one wrong word away. "Or you'll leave, and if you leave on my order, you won't be welcome back." The warrior's eyes went wide. He dropped his gaze immediately. submissive, smart enough to recognize an alpha on the edge of control. My apologies, Alpha, I meant no disrespect. Then watch your words. Kieran didn't move, didn't stop blocking all access to Alara. His hands were clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from doing something violent. She has a name, Alara, your future Luna. You'll use it. You'll show her the respect her position demands, and you'll keep your eyes on the floor unless she gives you permission to look at her. Yes, Alpha. The warrior kept his eyes down, his posture screaming submission. My apologies, Alara. I meant no offense. Kieran studied him for another long moment, every muscle in his frame tense, his breathing controlled but faster than it should be. The growl hadn't stopped, just gotten quieter, like a constant warning rumbling under the surface. Then finally he stepped aside slightly, still positioned between them, still radiating threat, but allowing the warrior to approach the treatment area. Alara moved forward, touching Kieran's arm gently, felt the tension coiled there, the barely controlled aggression. His whole body was vibrating with the need to remove threats, to protect what was his, to ensure no one and nothing came close to his mate. I can handle this. Her voice was low, just for him, meant to soothe. You don't need to threaten every male who speaks to me. He looked at you wrong. Kieran's jaw was tight, his eyes were still blazing, still locked on the warrior like he was tracking a potential threat. Like he was assessing, evaluating, wondering. I don't like males wondering about what's mine. He's injured and needs treatment, that's all. She squeezed his arm, felt his muscles flex under her fingers. I'm safe here. You're 20 feet away. Rowan is here. Lyra is here. Nothing's going to happen. Something could happen. His hand came up to cup her face, turned her toward him so she was looking directly into those burning amber eyes. Someone could touch you, could get too close, could look at you in a way that makes my wolf want to tear them apart. I can't control that instinct, can't turn it off, can't pretend I'm rational when it comes to your safety. I know. She leaned into his touch. Let him see that she understood, that she wasn't dismissing his instincts even if his behavior was excessive. But I need you to try. These are your people, your warriors. They need medical care, and I can't provide it if you threaten everyone who walks through that door. His jaw worked. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, alpha instinct to protect warring with logic, possessive need to control her environment warring with trust. Finally, he took a breath, stepped back fractionally. I'm not leaving. Absolute. No room for negotiation. You work. I watch. That's how this goes, but I'll try to control the growling. That's all I'm asking. She turned back to the warrior. Sit. Let me see that leg. She should argue. Should point out that hovering was excessive, that his constant presence was making the other healers nervous, that she was perfectly capable of treating patients without an alpha king standing guard. But the look in his eyes stopped her, the barely controlled need to protect, to claim, to ensure no one and nothing threatened what was his. Her wolf understood that need, responded to it, wanted it. Fine. She turned back to the warrior. Sit. Let me see that leg. The examination revealed a torn muscle in his calf. Nothing serious but painful enough to sideline him from training for a week. Alara worked quickly, cleaning the area, applying a poultice that would reduce inflammation, wrapping it properly to provide support. The whole time she was aware of Kieran watching, tracking every movement of her hands. Every time she touched the warrior, his possessive intensity was palpable. When she finished and the warrior left, she turned to find Kieran right behind her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, close enough that his scent wrapped around her, close enough that the heat from his body made her skin flush. You're hovering, she tried to sound annoyed, failed completely. I'm protecting. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. You're mine. I protect what's mine. I'm in a healing wing surrounded by pack members. I don't need protection. You need me. Simple. Certain. Your wolf knows it. I can see it in your eyes, feel it in the way you relax when I'm close. He leaned down until his forehead rested against hers. Stop fighting what we both know is true. She wanted to. Gods, she wanted to stop fighting, wanted to lean into him and accept that mate bonds were real and supernatural and absolute, wanted to trust that this massive alpha who'd claimed her so completely would keep his promises. but 15 years of running had taught her that trusting was dangerous, that lowering your guard got you killed. "I'm trying." Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "This is all happening so fast. 3 days ago my world ended, now I'm here, and you're calling me your mate, and I don't know how to process any of it." "Then don't process." His other hand found her waist, pulled her closer. "Just feel. Your wolf knows what to do. Listen to her." Before she could respond, a commotion at the entrance drew their attention. 2 warriors were supporting a third between them. The injured male was pale, sweating, his breathing labored. When they got him under the light, Alara saw the fever flush on his cheeks, the way his eyes weren't tracking properly. "What happened?" Rowan was already moving, gesturing to an empty bed. "He collapsed during a training," one of the supporting warriors. "Said he felt fine this morning, then just went down." Alara moved to help, but Kieran's hand on her arm stopped her. She looked up at him confused. "I need to examine him." "Let Rowan handle it." His grip tightened fractionally. "Something's wrong. I can smell it." "That's why I need to look at him." She pulled free of his grip. "That's what healers do." She was across the room before he could argue. Rowan was already examining the warrior, taking vitals, checking pupils, his expression growing more concerned by the second. Alara leaned in close, studying the symptoms. Fever, rapid pulse, dilated pupils, disorientation, sweating despite the cool temperature, and underneath it all, a scent that made her stomach drop. Sweet, wrong. The smell of infection that had turned septic. "How long has he been sick?" She directed the question to the supporting warriors. "He wasn't sick this morning. I trained beside him for 2 hours. He was fine." No one goes from fine to this in 2 hours. Alara's mind raced through possibilities. Unless it's not natural progression, unless something accelerated it. She looked at Rowan. "Has anyone else presented with these symptoms?" "Not that I've seen." But Rowan's expression suggested he was thinking the same thing she was. "But if this is what I think it is, we need to check everyone. Now." Over the next 4 hours, they examined every warrior in the compound, found 6 more with early-stage symptoms. Fever, fatigue, mild disorientation, all male, all combat age. All had been at training that morning or the night before. The pattern was too consistent to be coincidence. Alara stood at the central treatment table studying notes and trying to ignore Kieran's growing agitation behind her. He'd been pacing for the last hour, growling low in his throat, his control clearly straining under the weight of watching her work herself into exhaustion while people got sicker around her. "It's targeted." She spoke to Rowan but knew Kieran was listening. "Only affecting warriors. Only affecting males of fighting age. The onset is too fast for natural illness. This is weaponized." "A biological attack?" Rowan's voice was tight. "We haven't had one of those in 15 years. "Not since the war." Alara's throat was tight. Her father had dealt with a similar outbreak once, treated dozens of warriors while the pathogen ravaged their systems, lost 3 before he figured out the cure. "I've seen this before. The symptoms match what my father documented during a refugee camp outbreak 3 years ago." "Can you treat it?" Kieran's voice from directly behind her. Close, his heat against her back. "Yes, but I need to identify the exact pathogen, need to know what we're fighting." She turned and nearly collided with his chest. He was right there, crowding her space, his eyes blazing with barely controlled fear. "I need to work, Kieran. Need space to think." "You need to rest." His hand found her face, tilted it up toward the light, studied the exhaustion she knew was written in every line. "You've been working for 6 hours straight. Haven't eaten, haven't slept. Your hands are shaking. People are dying, and you'll be useless to them if you collapse." His thumb brushed under her eye. "You have dark circles. Your skin is pale. You're running on empty." "I can't stop now." "Yes, you can." He looked past her to Rowan. "How many healers do you have?" 4, including her." Rowan was watching them with interest. "Why?" "Because my mate needs rest and food, and she won't take it willingly." Kieran's attention came back to Alara. "Rowan and the others will continue monitoring the sick. You're coming with me. Non-negotiable." "You can't just order me around." "I'm your alpha. I can't order you to do anything." His expression softened slightly. "But I'm asking. Please, let me take care of you for 1 hour. Eat, rest. Then you can come back and work until you solve this. But right now, you need to let someone else carry the weight." The please did it. That and the genuine concern in his eyes. the way his whole body was tense with the need to protect her from everything, including herself. Her wolf wanted to let him, wanted to lean into that protection and trust that he'd keep his word. 1 hour, she heard herself say, then I come back. 1 hour, he agreed. Then before she could process what was happening, he'd scooped her up, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back, carrying her like she weighed nothing. Hold on to me. She should protest, should demand to be put down, should maintain some dignity in front of the other healers. But she was so tired, and he was so warm, and her body made the decision before her brain caught up. Her arms went around his neck, her head fell against his shoulder, and she let herself be carried. His chambers were exactly as she remembered. Massive bed with silk sheets and furs, fireplace crackling with fresh logs, sending warm light dancing across stone walls, windows overlooking the training yards now dark in the evening light. The room smelled like him, pine and leather and something wild. Home. It smelled like home. He set her down gently on the edge of the bed, his hands lingering on her waist, his eyes tracking over her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then he disappeared into the adjoining room. She heard water running, the clink of dishes, quiet movements that suggested care and preparation. He returned moments later with a tray of food, bread still warm from the kitchen, cheese, dried meat, fresh fruit that must have cost a fortune this late in the season, a pitcher of water, and a cup of what smelled like herbal tea. He set it on the bedside table, then sat beside her, close enough that their thighs touched, close enough that she could feel his body heat, close enough that his scent wrapped around her completely. Eat, his voice had gentled, no longer command, more like coaxing. All of it. I'm not that hungry. But her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, betraying her. His lips twitched with barely suppressed amusement. Your body disagrees. He tore off a piece of bread, held it to her lips. Eat, or I'll feed you myself. And I promise you won't like how controlling I get when my mate isn't taking care of herself. She took the bread, chewed mechanically, tried not to think about how intimate this felt. Him feeding her, watching her with those intense amber eyes, making sure she ate properly. It should have felt overbearing. Instead, it felt cherished, cared for, protected in a way that went beyond physical safety. He coaxed her through half the meal, his patience never wavering, his attention never wandering. When she reached for the cup of tea, his hand covered hers, guided it to her lips, made sure she drank enough. By the time she'd cleared the tray, her body finally accepted that food was happening and hunger kicked in properly. Real hunger, not just mechanical consumption. Better? Kieran was watching her with those intense amber eyes, studying her face like he was cataloging every detail, every shift in expression, every sign of exhaustion or wellness. Better, she admitted. Let herself lean into him slightly, let herself take comfort in his solid presence. Thank you. You don't thank your mate for taking care of you. He stood smoothly, moved behind her on the bed. Large hands settled on her shoulders with surprising gentleness. This is what mates do. Care for each other. Protect each other. Make sure the other one doesn't work themselves into the ground. His thumbs found the knots of tension along her shoulder blades, started working them loose with patient pressure that was both firm and careful. His hands felt incredible, strong and sure and knowing exactly where every point of tension lived, finding knots she didn't know existed and working them loose with slow, circular pressure. Ilara's eyes drifted closed despite her intention to stay alert. Her head fell forward, giving him better access to her neck and upper back. A sound that might have been a purr escaped her throat before she could stop it. Kieran's hands stilled. Then his laugh rumbled through his chest, low and pleased and full of masculine satisfaction. Did you just purr for me? No. But her voice was unconvincing even to her own ears, breathy and affected, and completely failing to hide how good his hands felt. That was something else. That was definitely a purr. His hands resumed their work, sliding from her shoulders down her spine, thumbs pressing into tight muscles on either side of her vertebrae, working their way down with methodical care. Your wolf is very happy right now. My wolf is a traitor who keeps forgetting we barely know you. But there was no heat in her words, just lazy contentment as his hands worked magic on muscles that hadn't relaxed in days, maybe weeks. maybe years. We're mates. That means we know each other at a level that goes deeper than words or time. He leaned down until his mouth was beside her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Your wolf knows exactly who I am, what I'll always be to you. His teeth grazed her earlobe gently, and she gasped, felt heat pool low in her stomach. Mate, protector, yours. The heat in his voice made her shiver, made her wolf press close to the surface, wanting out, wanting to respond to the claim in his words, wanting to turn around and show him exactly how much she was starting to accept this bond between them, how much she wanted him, how much she was beginning to trust that this feeling was real and permanent and not just some temporary insanity brought on by exhaustion and grief. We should talk about Morrison. Her voice came out breathier than she intended. He's your closest friend and he's sick. You should be with him, not here with me. Kieran's hands stilled again. She felt the tension return to his frame. I can't. If I go to him, I'll stay. And if I stay with him, I won't be here protecting you. My wolf can't handle being separated from you. Not yet. Not when everything is still so new. He needs you. You need me more. He pulled her back against his chest, wrapped his arms around her waist, held her like she was something precious. Morrison understands. He knows what mates mean. Knows I'd be there if I could. But right now my priority is you. Keeping you safe. Keeping you sane. Making sure you don't burn yourself out trying to save everyone. That's what healers do. That's what martyrs do. His hold tightened. And you're not dying for anyone. Not while I'm alive to prevent it. They sat like that for a long moment. His warmth surrounding her. His heartbeat steady against her back. Her exhaustion slowly pulling her toward sleep despite her intention to rest for just an hour, then return to work. Tell me about Morrison. She kept her eyes closed. Let his presence anchor her. How long have you known him? 20 years. Kieran's voice went soft, reminiscent. He was at my mother's funeral. Stood beside me when my father couldn't. Made me promise I'd never forget that leadership was service, not power. His arms tightened fractionally. He's been my anchor through everything. The one person who never let me take the easy path, who called me on my mistakes, who reminded me what kind of alpha I wanted to be. And now he's sick because someone weaponized a pathogen against your warriors. Now he's dying and I can't do anything except trust that my mate is brilliant enough to save him. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, which I do. Trust you, completely. The words settled something in her chest. This massive alpha who'd claimed her so absolutely, who'd defended her against his own counsel, who'd threatened anyone who looked at her wrong, was trusting her with his best friend's life, was stepping back and letting her work, even though every instinct probably screamed at him to take control. I'll save him, she heard herself promise. I'll save all of them, whatever it takes. I know you will. Another kiss. This one to her temple. But right now you're going to sleep for 2 hours. Then you can go back and work miracles. But 2 hours, that's the deal. 1 hour, 2, absolute. Or I'll keep you here all night and let Rowan handle everything. She should argue, should push back, should insist on returning immediately. But her body had other ideas. The moment he shifted them both back onto the bed, the moment he pulled the furs over them and tucked her against his chest, the moment his scent surrounded her completely, her exhausted mind surrendered to sleep. When she woke, the light outside had changed, late afternoon instead of early afternoon. She'd slept for at least 3 hours, maybe 4. She sat up with a gasp and Kieran's arm tightened around her waist. Easy. His voice was sleep-rough. You're fine. Still in my chambers. Still safe. I need to get back. She tried to pull free. People need treatment. Rowan sent word an hour ago. 2 more warriors showing symptoms. But the original group is stable. Your treatment plan is working. He sat up, keeping his arm around her. You've bought us time. Now we need to identify the source before more people get sick. He was right. Treatment was only half the battle. They needed to find how the pathogen was being delivered. Stop it at the source. Prevent more casualties. Ilara's mind was already racing through possibilities as she stood and headed for the door. Kieran was beside her instantly, hand at the small of her back, possessive. Where are you going? Water supply. That's the most efficient delivery method for a targeted pathogen. She was moving fast, mind sharp despite the hours of sleep. If they contaminated the training yard wells, that would explain why only warriors are affected. They found it 40 minutes later. One of the 3 wells serving the Western training grounds showed subtle discoloration, chemical traces that shouldn't be there. Someone had accessed the well sometime in the last 24 hours and introduced the pathogen directly into the water source. Kieran stared at the evidence with murder in his eyes. Someone inside our territory did this. Someone with access and knowledge and malice. His hands clenched. When I find them, they'll pray for death long before I grant it. Alara touched his arm, pulling his attention to her. We'll find them. But right now, we need to treat the sick and prevent more casualties. Revenge comes after we save lives. He looked at her for a long moment. Then some of the rage in his expression gentled. How did I get so lucky? To have a mate who thinks like a strategist and heals like a saint. I'm not a saint. I'm just doing what needs to be done. You're extraordinary. He pulled her close, pressed a kiss to her forehead. And I'm keeping you. Forever. No matter what happens, no matter who tries to take you away. You're mine, and I'm never letting go. The words should have scared her, should have felt like too much too soon. But standing there in the shadow of biological warfare with sick warriors depending on her, and an alpha who looked at her like she hung the moon, all she felt was certainty. Forever, she heard herself whisper. I think I'm starting to believe that. By midnight, Morrison's fever had broken. The treatment Alara had developed based on her father's notes was working. Slowly, painfully, but working. All 9 affected warriors were stable. No new cases had emerged since they'd shut down the contaminated wells. The immediate crisis was passing. Alara stood at Morrison's bedside, checking his vitals one final time. The older warrior's breathing was steady. His color was improving. His eyes, when they opened, were clear and aware instead of fever bright and confused. You're the Shadowmoon healer. His voice was rough but functional. The one my alpha claimed. I'm Alara. She adjusted his IV. And yes, Kieran is my mate. Good. Morrison's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. He needs someone who isn't afraid to challenge him, someone who can stand beside him, not behind him. He coughed, winced. Thank you for saving me, for saving all of us. I'm just doing my job. You're doing more than that. His eyes drifted closed again. You're giving Kieran something he never thought he'd have. Hope, partnership, a future that isn't just duty and sacrifice. His breathing evened out, sleep claiming him again. Take care of him. He'll take care of you. That's what mates do. Alara stepped back from the bed and found Kieran waiting in the doorway. He'd been there the whole time, watching, that possessive intensity never wavering. She walked to him and he pulled her close immediately, arms around her waist, face buried in her hair, breathing her in like she was oxygen. He's going to live. She said it quietly. They all are. Because of you. His arms tightened. You saved my best friend, saved my warriors. Put yourself at risk working with contaminated samples, working until you were shaking with exhaustion. He pulled back enough to look at her. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. We're mates. This is what we do. She used his own words back at him. Care for each other. Protect each other. Make sure the other one doesn't work themselves into the ground. His laugh was surprised and genuine. Using my words against me. I like it. He sobered. But I'm serious. You've proven yourself 10 times over in the last 3 days. The council can't question you now. The pack can't doubt you. You've earned your place here through your actions. I didn't do it for them. I did it because people needed help. She touched his face, felt the tension there, the exhaustion he'd been hiding. When's the last time you slept? When you did, the few hours this afternoon. That's not enough. I'll sleep when you sleep. He caught her hand, brought it to his lips, kissed her palm. My wolf won't rest unless you're beside me. Then take me to bed. The words came out more suggestive than she intended. Heat flooded her cheeks. I mean, for sleep. Actual sleep. His eyes blazed bright amber. For now. The promise in his voice made her shiver. But eventually we're going to have a very different conversation about you in my bed. He led her through the quiet citadel, up the stairs to his chambers. She should have gone to her own room, should have maintained some boundaries. But the truth was, she didn't want to. Didn't want to be alone. Wanted his warmth and his presence and the sense of safety that came from being near him. His chambers were dark except for the fireplace. He undressed down to his pants. She stayed in her healer's dress. They climbed into bed and his arms came around her immediately, pulling her against his chest, his warmth surrounding her completely. "Thank you." His voice was quiet against her hair. "For saving Morrison, for saving my warriors, for being exactly what I needed when I needed it most. You would have done the same for me." Without hesitation. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Sleep now. Tomorrow we'll find who contaminated the wells. But tonight, you rest." She should have struggled to sleep, should have been wound too tight, but his heartbeat was steady under her ear, and his scent was everywhere, and her wolf was purring with contentment. Sleep claimed her fast and deep, and when she woke 3 hours later, it was to find him awake, watching her, those amber eyes glowing in the darkness. "You're supposed to be sleeping." Her voice was sleep-rough. "I was watching you, my mate, safe in my bed, exactly where you belong." His hand came up to cup her face. "I need to ask you something." "What?" "Are you ready?" His thumb brushed across her lower lip. "For the next step. For me to claim you completely. To mark you so everyone knows without question that you're mine." Her breath caught. She knew what he meant. The bite. The claiming mark that would brand her as his in a way that was permanent and visible and absolute. Is this because of the epidemic? Because I proved myself? This is because I can't wait anymore. His eyes blazed brighter. Because every instinct in me is screaming to complete this bond. Because my wolf demands it and your wolf wants it, and we're both fighting something that should be inevitable. He leaned closer until his lips brushed hers. "I want to mark you. Want everyone to see my claim on your skin. Want you to carry my scent and my bite and my promise that you're mine forever." "Where?" she heard herself ask. Not if. Where? Because some part of her had already decided, had already accepted, had already surrendered to the inevitability of this bond. "Here." His lips moved to her throat, found the junction of her neck and shoulder, that sensitive spot that made her gasp. "Where everyone can see it, where you'll feel it every time you move, a permanent reminder that you belong to me." "And what do I get?" Her voice came out breathy, affected by his mouth on her throat. "What's your mark?" "Whatever you want." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "My throat? My shoulder? Anywhere you choose. Mark me. Claim me. Show the world I'm yours as much as you're mine." The equality in that offer settled something in her. This wasn't just him claiming her. This was mutual, partnership. "The battlements. I want to be outside under the sky when we do this, not hidden in darkness." He smiled, fierce and possessive and full of promise. "Then the battlements it is." They dressed quickly, him in dark pants and shirt, her in her healer's dress. The Citadel was quiet at 3 a.m, everyone sleeping, only night guards on patrol. They made it to the battlements without encountering anyone. The moon was full, silver light painting everything in shades of white and shadow. The air was cool but not cold, mountain peaks visible in the distance. It was beautiful, romantic, perfect. Kieran pulled her close, his hands framing her face. "Last chance to change your mind. Once I bite you, once my mark is on your skin, there's no going back. You'll be mine forever." "I know." She reached up, touched his face. "I'm choosing this, choosing you. Not because I have to, not because my wolf demands it, because I want to, because these past 3 days have shown me what partnership looks like, what it means to have someone who protects and cherishes and respects me." He kissed her, deep and possessive and full of barely restrained desire. His hands moved to her waist, pulled her flush against him. When he finally broke the kiss, they were both breathing hard. "My throat." She said it decisively, voice steady despite her racing heart. "I want your mark on your throat, where everyone can see it, where you can't hide it, where every wolf who looks at you will know you're claimed, that you're mine." "Perfect." His eyes blazed brighter, satisfaction and desire and something deeper, something that looked like reverence, like she'd just given him a gift beyond price. He tilted his head to the side, exposing that vulnerable line of his throat, baring the place where his pulse beat strong and steady. "Mark me. Claim me. Make me yours in a way the world can see." She'd never done this, never bitten anyone, didn't know if her wolf would come through or if she'd just hurt him awkwardly. Didn't know the mechanics or the instinct or anything except that she wanted this, wanted to mark him, wanted to claim him, wanted everyone to know he was hers the way she was his. But the moment her lips touched his throat, something primal took over. Her dormant wolf surged forward with a certainty that stole her breath. Her teeth elongated, sharp, and meant for exactly this purpose. Canines designed by nature for claiming, for marking, for making permanent what her heart already knew. She bit down, not hard enough to seriously injure, not trying to cause real damage, but hard enough to break skin, hard enough to mark, hard enough that the taste of copper flooded her mouth and her wolf howled with satisfaction. This was right. This was meant to be. This was destiny made physical. He groaned, low and deep and full of masculine pleasure. His hands tightened on her waist hard enough to bruise. His whole body went rigid, not with pain, with something else, something that felt like completion, like a circuit closing, like two halves finally becoming whole. And she felt it. The moment the mark took. The moment supernatural bond flared to life, connecting them on a level that went deeper than physical, deeper than conscious thought, soul deep, wolf deep, a connection that would last until one of them died and maybe beyond. She pulled back slowly, licked the blood from her lips, tasted him, tasted the mark, tasted forever, watched as the bite on his throat glowed faintly silver for just a moment, ethereal light that seemed to come from within. Then it settled into his skin, permanent, visible, hers. Your turn. His voice was rough with need, raw with barely controlled desire. His eyes were blazing so bright they lit up the darkness around them. Mark me, please. I need to feel your claim on me, need to carry your bite, need everyone to know I'm yours. She tilted her head, exposed her throat, that vulnerable place where her pulse beat fast and frantic, gave him permission, gave him access, gave him everything. And when his teeth sank into that sensitive junction of neck and shoulder, the pain was sharp and bright and absolutely perfect. His mark, his claim, his promise made physical in a way that would last forever. She gasped, felt her knees go weak, felt his arm tighten around her waist, holding her up, felt his teeth in her flesh and his breath on her skin and the overwhelming rightness of this moment. The pain faded fast, replaced by warmth that spread through her entire body like liquid fire, her wolf rising, pressing against her skin, finally fully awake after 22 years of silence, finally certain, finally home. This male was her mate, forever and always, no doubt, no question, just absolute certainty that transcended logic and time and everything except bone-deep knowing. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing so bright they could have guided ships. The mark on her throat glowed amber, matching his eyes, pulsing with supernatural energy, visible proof of his claim, of their bond, of promises made and kept and sealed in blood and magic and whatever force in the universe decided that these two souls belonged together. Mine, he breathed against her lips, voice shaking with emotion. Forever mine. Yours. She touched the mark on his throat, felt it pulse with supernatural energy under her fingertips, felt the connection between them humming like a live wire. And you're mine, forever. The kiss that followed was claiming and promise and everything they'd been holding back for 3 days. His hands moved over her with sure possession, mapping every curve, learning her body, claiming every inch as his. Her hands found his chest, felt his heart thundering, felt the raw power coiled in his frame, felt the barely controlled need that matched her own. His mouth moved from her lips to her marked throat, licking over the bite, soothing it with his tongue, making satisfied sounds that were half growl, half purr, claiming her even more thoroughly. Her hands fisted in his hair, pulled him closer, let him mark her, let him claim her, let him show her exactly what it meant to be his mate. When they finally broke apart, they were both shaking, both breathing hard, both looking at each other with new awareness. The mate bond between them was alive now, glowing, thrumming with energy, connecting them in ways that words couldn't capture. She could feel him, his emotions, his need, his absolute certainty that she was his and he was hers, and nothing would ever come between them. Not distance, not time, not death itself. They were bonded, mated, connected at a level that transcended the physical. The whole pack will know by morning. She touched her throat, felt the mark there, permanent reminder. Everyone will see. Good. His hand covered hers. "I want them to see, want them to know, want every wolf in this territory and every territory beyond to understand that you're mine and I'm yours, and anyone who tries to separate us will face my wrath." She believed him. Standing there under the full moon with his mark on her throat and hers on his, she believed every word. And for the first time since her father died, for the first time in 3 days of running and fear and grief, she felt safe. Home. She'd found home in the arms of an alpha king who'd claimed her completely, and she never wanted to leave. The intelligence came 3 days after the marking. A border scout reporting rogue movements, 80 hostiles massing at the eastern approach, organized into 3 groups with clear coordination, attack estimated within 72 hours. Kieran called an emergency meeting in the war room. Just him, Marcus, Morrison, and Alara. The bite marks on both their throats were visible to everyone, glowing faintly in certain lights, impossible to miss or misinterpret. They were mated, claimed, bonded in ways the whole pack now understood. Marcus spread maps across the table. Primary force of 40 at the Eastern Pass. Diversionary tactics. They want us committed there while the real threats hit from 2 other directions. Tunnels and southwest wall. Morrison pointed to the locations. His leg was still healing, but his tactical mind was sharp. Classic infiltration strategy. They're after leadership targets. Kieran's hand found Alara's waist, pulled her against his side, possessive, meaning they're coming for us. For me. For her. She should be nowhere near the fighting. Marcus's voice was flat, professional. Put her somewhere secure, underground, protected. No. Kieran's growl was immediate. She stays where I can see her, where I can protect her. That's tactically unsound. Marcus met his alpha's eyes. You can't command and protect your mate simultaneously. Watch me. Kieran's eyes blazed. She's not going underground, not being locked away. She stays in the medical wing where she can treat casualties. I'll position myself there, use it as a kill box. They want me, they can come through fortified positions to get me. Morrison studied them both. You're using yourself as bait. I'm using myself as a tactical advantage. They know where I'll be. They'll commit resources to taking me out. We'll be ready. Kieran's arm tightened around Alara. And my mate will be safe behind defensive positions with warriors guarding every approach. Alara looked up at him, saw the fear beneath the tactical planning, the absolute terror of losing her warring with his need to command effectively. I'll be careful. I'll stay in the medical wing. But you have to promise me you'll be careful too. I promise I'll do everything in my power to come back to you. He pressed a kiss to her marked throat, right over his claiming bite. But if something happens, if I fall, you run. You take what's left of the pack and you run. Don't stay and fight. Don't try to be heroic. Just survive. Nothing's going to happen. She cupped his face, made him look at her. We're mated now, bonded. I can feel you. And I'm not losing you 3 days after claiming you. So you're going to fight smart and come back to me. Understand? His answering kiss was possessive and desperate. Understand. The attack came at dawn like a predator striking from darkness into light. Exactly as intelligence predicted, but somehow still shocking in its violence and coordination. Kieran had positioned warriors in defensive layers throughout the citadel. Medical wing fortified with hidden fighting positions that looked like storage spaces. Warriors concealed behind false walls. Crossfire patterns established during the planning session. Everything prepared, everything ready. But preparation never eliminated the fear, never made the waiting easier. Alara worked in the main treatment area, trying to focus on preparing supplies instead of thinking about Kieran out there coordinating defenses, setting up triage stations with practiced efficiency, laying out surgical instruments in order of likely need, trying not to feel through their bond every time his adrenaline spiked or his heart raced, trying not to count the minutes until the fighting started and casualties would start flooding in. The sounds of combat filtered through stone walls within 20 minutes of dawn, growls that were half human, half animal, shouts and voices she was starting to recognize, the clash of weapons, the wet sounds of teeth and flesh. Battle had a sound, a rhythm. Once you heard it, you never forgot it. She'd heard it 3 days ago when her settlement burned, was hearing it again now while trying to prepare to save lives that combat would put at risk. The first casualties came quickly. Minor injuries mostly, easily treatable. Warriors who'd taken hits but remained functional. She worked with efficient calm while her heart raced and her hands wanted to shake. Cleaned wounds, applied bandages, administered pain medication, sent them back to fighting positions with instructions to return if symptoms worsened. Professional, competent, exactly what they needed. Kieran stood near this entrance like a sentinel, eyes blazing, watching, always watching. His presence was both comforting and distracting. She could feel his attention on her even when she wasn't looking, could feel through the bond his constant assessment, making sure she was safe, making sure no threats got close, making sure that if anything went wrong, he could reach her in seconds. It should have been suffocating, should have felt like he didn't trust her competence. Instead, it felt cherished, protected, loved in a way that went beyond words. Every time a new casualty entered his eyes, tracked them, assessed threat level, made sure they were actually injured and not hostiles in disguise. His wolf was present in every motion, every twitch, every barely controlled growl, on the edge of violence, ready to shift and fight if anything threatened his mate. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor," she said it quietly during a lull, trying to ease some of his tension. "I'm safe here. You positioned warriors at every entrance. Nothing's getting through. Something could get through." His voice was tight, strained with control. "Plans fail. Intelligence is wrong. Unexpected threats emerge. I need to be ready, need to protect you. You are protecting me. By being here, by watching, by trusting that I can do my job while you do yours." She touched his arm, felt the tension coiled there. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not dying. We're mated now, bonded. I can feel you. You can feel me. If something was wrong, you'd know instantly. I'd know when you were already hurt." His hand covered hers, gripped tight. "I'd feel your pain through the bond. That's not good enough. I need to prevent the pain. Stop the threat before it touches you." "That's not possible. You can't prevent every danger, can't anticipate every threat. All you can do is be ready to respond." She squeezed his hand. "Which you are, which this whole defensive plan is designed for. Trust the plan, trust your warriors, trust me." Before he could respond, the situation changed. 6 hostiles breached the medical wing's service entrance. The one architectural plans showed as sealed, the one they'd thought was secure, coming through with weapons drawn and violence in their eyes, not trying for stealth, going for maximum chaos, trying to reach Kieran, trying to eliminate the Alpha while he was distracted protecting his mate. Kieran moved with supernatural speed that made him blur, positioning himself between the attackers and Alara before conscious thought could engage. His shift was fluid, perfect, human to wolf in a heartbeat, massive dark form with blazing amber eyes that lit up the dim medical wing. He hit the first attacker with enough force to snap bones audibly. The sound of ribs cracking echoed, tore into the second with fangs designed over millennia to kill efficiently, to end threats permanently. The hidden warriors emerged from their concealed positions exactly as planned. Crossfire patterns engaged. The medical wing transformed from healing space to kill box in seconds. Exactly as Kieran had designed it. Every angle of fire calculated, every position optimized, warriors working in coordinated patterns that spoke to years of training together. But 3 more hostiles breached through a second access point that intelligence had missed. A maintenance corridor that shouldn't have been accessible, that someone had reopened specifically for this attack. They came through low and fast, professional, trained, dangerous. One of them had a clear shot at Kieran's back, had his weapon raised and aimed, had his finger tightening on the trigger while Kieran was focused on the threats in front of him. The Alpha was about to die, about to be killed while protecting his mate, about to fall because he'd positioned himself as shield instead of staying back where he could command safely. The risk he'd taken to keep her safe was about to cost him everything, and Alara saw it all, turned at exactly the wrong moment, saw the hostile aiming, saw death coming for her mate, saw 3 days of bonded happiness about to end in blood and grief and permanent loss, saw the future they'd planned evaporating before it could begin. That's when her wolf exploded free. Something inside her chest exploded. Not pain, power. Heat that started in her core and radiated outward with violent force that felt like dying and being reborn at the same time. Her wolf. The beast that had been dormant for 22 years. That had stirred when she met Kieran, but never fully emerged. that had pressed against her consciousness during their marking, but stayed just beneath the surface. Her wolf woke up completely, violently, with absolute certainty about one thing that overrode every other consideration, including her own survival. Protect mate. The transformation hurt in ways she had no framework to understand, every bone in her body breaking simultaneously, femur shattering and reforming longer, stronger, built for speed and power, her spine extending, vertebrae separating, new segments adding to accommodate a tail she'd never had, her ribcage expanding to hold lungs that would process oxygen at supernatural rates. Her skull felt like it was being crushed and reshaped at once, jaw elongating, teeth becoming fangs designed to tear and kill, hands becoming claws tipped with weapons sharper than any blade. Pain so intense she screamed, but the sound that came out was half human, half animal, caught between forms, stuck in that horrifying space where she was neither one thing nor the other, where her consciousness was splintering between human thought and wolf instinct, where every nerve in her body was firing signals that said, "This is wrong, fix it, fix it, fix it." But underneath the pain was purpose, power, the absolute certainty that she would die before letting anyone hurt him, that her wolf had been waiting 22 years for exactly this moment, for a reason to emerge that was strong enough to overcome fear and trauma and every psychological barrier that had kept her dormant. Love, mate bond, the overwhelming need to protect what was hers. Her vision sharpened to almost painful clarity, colors becoming more vivid, reds and oranges that humans couldn't perceive, the ultraviolet spectrum suddenly accessible. She could see heat signatures, could track movement that had been invisible moments before, could count individual dust motes in the air and track their trajectory. Sounds amplified, the hostile's heartbeat, fast, frightened. He knew something was wrong, could sense the predator emerging behind him. She could hear Kieran fighting, hear his growls and the wet sounds of his teeth and flesh, hear every warrior's breathing, every footstep, every whispered curse. The world was suddenly a symphony of information. She could smell everything. Fear sharp and acrid from the hostiles, determination like iron from the warriors, blood, copper, and salt, and underneath it all, cutting through every other scent, pine and leather, her mate, her alpha, the one she would kill to protect. Her wolf was awake, and she was absolutely furious that anyone would dare threaten what was theirs. She moved without conscious thought. Her body knew what to do, even if her human mind was still reeling, faster than she'd ever moved as human, across the room in 3 strides that ate up distance impossible for her human form, between the hostile and Kieran before the trigger could be pulled, before death could claim her mate, before anything could take him from her. Her claws found the hostile's throat. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just moved with predatory precision that came from instinct older than civilization. Tore, felt flesh part under her claws, felt blood spray hot and copper across her muzzle, felt the moment his life ended and his body went heavy and still. She turned immediately, found the next threat, the one coming at Kieran from the left while he was focused on enemies in front, launched herself at him with feral rage that had no mercy in it, no hesitation, no human softness. Her teeth found his shoulder, bit down hard enough to crack bone, ripped, tore. He screamed, high and terrified, tried to fight back, threw an elbow that connected with her ribs. Would have hurt if she'd been in her right mind. But pain didn't matter. Nothing mattered except eliminating threats to her mate. She was stronger in this form, faster, more vicious, everything her human body couldn't be. She brought him down with weight and momentum, used her claws, used her teeth, ended him with brutal efficiency that her human mind would later be horrified by, but her wolf reveled in. He was threat. He died. Simple. The third hostile tried to run, smart, but not smart enough. She caught him at the door, brought him down with claws in his back. He hit the floor hard, tried to crawl. She ended him quickly, more mercy than he deserved, more than her wolf wanted to give. But some part of her human consciousness was still present, still making decisions about when to stop, when killing had served its purpose. When the immediate threats were neutralized, she turned back to Kieran, found him in human form, staring at her with awe and something that looked like reverence. His chest was heaving, his eyes blazing amber, Blood covered his arms and torso, but none of it seemed to be his. "Elara," his voice was rough, raw with emotion. "You transformed. Your wolf. She's beautiful." Elara looked down at herself, saw silver-gray fur, clawed hands, felt the power coiled in this new form, felt strong and fast and deadly, felt like herself but more, like she'd finally found a missing piece. She tried to shift back, didn't know how. Panic started to set in. Kieran was there instantly, hands on her furred shoulders, eyes locked on hers. "Easy, breathe. Your wolf knows what to do. Just relax and let her guide you." She tried, focused on breathing, on his scent, on the bond between them humming with warmth, slowly, painfully. Her body shifted back, bones reforming, fur receding, until she was human again, naked, shaking, covered in blood that wasn't hers. Kieran wrapped her in his arms immediately, pulled her against his chest, his warmth surrounding her completely. "You transformed for me, to protect me. Your wolf finally emerged because I was threatened. I saw him aiming at you." Her voice shook. "I saw you were going to die and I couldn't lose you. Not after finally finding you." "I know." He pressed kisses to her hair, her forehead, her marked throat. "I know, baby. You saved me. Your wolf saved me. You're so strong, so fierce, so absolutely perfect." "I killed them!" The reality was starting to sink in. 3 males. I killed them. "You protected your mate." His arms tightened. "That's what wolves do. What mates do. You did what needed to be done, what your wolf demanded." He pulled back enough to look at her. "I'm so proud of you, so grateful, so absolutely in love with you that I can't breathe." "You love me?" The words came out small, uncertain. "I love you." Absolute certainty. "Have loved you since the moment you collapsed into my arms. Maybe before. Maybe the universe knew you were mine before either of us did." He cupped her face. "I love you. And tonight, after this is over, after we've dealt with the remaining threats, I'm going to make you mine in every way possible." Heat flooded her despite the circumstances, despite the blood and the bodies and the battle still raging outside. "Tonight?" "Tonight." He kissed her, possessive, claiming. "I can't wait anymore. 3 days with bite marks and stolen kisses. 3 days feeling you through the bond but not being able to claim you completely. Tonight I'm making you my wife, my Luna, my everything, in every way that matters." Before she could respond, Marcus burst through the entrance. "Alpha, we've pushed them back. 20 dead on their side, 5 captured. Our casualties are minimal. But we need you at the Eastern Pass. They're regrouping for another assault." Kieran's jaw tightened. He didn't want to leave her. She could feel it through the bond. The absolute need to stay close, to keep her in sight, to protect her from everything. But duty demanded. Leadership demanded. "Go." She touched his face. "I'm safe here. Rowan and Lyra need help with casualties. Go command your warriors. I'll be here when you get back." "You better be." He kissed her once more, hard and quick. "Because I have plans for tonight. Very specific plans. And nothing is going to stop me from following through." He left, taking half the warriors with him, leaving the rest to guard the medical wing and guard her. Elara dressed quickly in spare clothes, helped Rowan with the casualties, tried not to feel through the bond every spike of adrenaline, every moment of danger, every close call. The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it finally ended, the rogues were routed, dead or captured or fled. Ironpeak had held. The pack was safe. Casualties were surprisingly light. Good tactical planning and good intelligence had made the difference. Kieran returned covered in blood and dirt, exhausted but uninjured. His eyes found her immediately, blazing with relief and something deeper, something that looked like hunger, raw need, the absolute determination to make good on his promise. "Is it over?" she asked, even though she knew the answer. "It's over." He moved toward her, predatory grace. "We won. The pack is safe. And now—" He pulled her close, buried his face in her marked throat, breathed her in. "Now I'm taking you to my chambers. I'm going to bathe you, feed you, and then I'm going to make you mine in every way I've been dreaming about for the last 3 days." Heat flooded her. "Kieran, we should help with cleanup, with prisoner interrogations, with—" "No." He lifted her chin, made her look at him. "The pack can handle cleanup. Marcus can handle prisoners. Right now, my only priority is you, claiming you, making you my wife, completing this bond in the way it's meant to be completed. The ceremony. She tried to think past the desire flooding through their bond. Don't we need the council, witnesses, proper ritual? We'll do the public ceremony later, tomorrow, next week, I don't care. His eyes blazed. Tonight is private, just us. Ancient vows spoken in my chambers. Bonding completed the way our wolves demand. Tomorrow we can present you to the pack. Tonight, you're mine alone. She should argue, should insist on proper protocol, should point out that Luna ceremonies required witnesses and council approval and all the formal trappings of pack politics. But the look in his eyes stopped her. The raw need mixed with reverence. The way he looked at her like she was everything he'd ever wanted. Yes, she heard herself say. Tonight, private, just us. His chambers had been prepared while they were fighting. Someone had thought ahead, planned for this moment. Fresh sheets on the bed, silk in deep crimson that matched Ironpeak colors. Candles lit throughout the room, casting warm, flickering light that danced across stone walls and made everything feel ancient and sacred. A bath drawn in the adjoining room. She could smell herbs and oils, lavender, something woodsy she couldn't identify. Food laid out on a side table, wine in crystal decanters, everything arranged for exactly what he'd planned. He undressed her slowly, carefully, taking his time despite the hunger she could feel pulsing through their bond like a second heartbeat. His hands reverent on her skin, removing blood-stained clothing like unwrapping a gift meant to be treasured. Each button undone with deliberate care. Each piece of fabric peeled away with attention that made her breath catch. When she was bare before him, his eyes tracked over her with possessive appreciation that was both protective and predatory. Beautiful. His voice was rough with need barely controlled. Absolutely perfect. Mine. Yours. She reached for his shirt, started undoing buttons with hands that wanted to shake but didn't because she refused to show uncertainty. Not now. Not when this moment was everything. And you're mine, so stop being dressed when I'm not. His laugh was low and pleased and full of masculine satisfaction. He helped her, stripping quickly with efficiency that suggested this wasn't about seduction, but necessity. Until he stood before her equally bare, firelight playing across bronze skin and defined muscle, scars that told stories she wanted to learn, power coiled in every line of his frame. She'd seen him shirtless before, had felt his chest against hers, had traced the muscles there with curious fingers. But this was different. This was deliberate, intimate, building toward something that felt inevitable and terrifying and absolutely right all at once. He led her to the bath, his hand gentle on her lower back, guided her in with care that suggested she was precious, fragile, something to be protected even in this private space, followed her into water that was hot enough to make her gasp, scented with herbs that made her head swim slightly, relaxing, sensual, designed for exactly this moment. He washed her carefully, thoroughly, hands moving over her body with sure possession that was somehow both practical and deeply sensual, cleaning away blood and dirt and battle, removing the evidence of violence so they could focus on creation, on building, on bringing life instead of dealing death. His touch was both care and claiming at once, every brush of his fingers saying mine while also saying cherished, valued, loved. When they were both clean and the water had started to cool, he lifted her from the bath, wrapped her in soft towels that someone had warmed by the fire, dried her with patient attention that made her skin flush with heat that had nothing to do with the bath. His hands lingered, learned her, mapped territory he'd claimed with his bite but hadn't yet explored fully. He carried her to this bed, his strength making her feel delicate, despite knowing she'd killed 3 males that morning, laid her on silk sheets that felt cool and smooth against her heated skin, stood over her with eyes blazing amber so bright they cast shadows, looking at her like she was everything he'd ever wanted, everything he'd been searching for, everything that mattered. Last chance to change your mind. His voice was strained, control clearly costing him. Once we do this, once I claim you completely, there's no going back. You'll be mine in every way possible, bound to me, connected to me, forever. I don't want to go back. She reached for him with hands that were steady despite her racing heart, despite knowing what came next would change everything. "I want forward, with you, forever, however long that is." He came to her then, covered her body with his weight pressing her into the mattress, solid, real, his. His mouth found hers in a kiss that was claiming and promise and the beginning of everything that mattered. His hands moved over her with purpose, learning her responses, finding the places that made her gasp, the touches that made her arch into him, the pressure that drew sounds from her throat she'd never made before. She touched him back, explored the hard planes of his body with growing confidence, the scars that crisscrossed his back and chest, telling stories of battles survived, the strength coiled in every muscle, the heat of his skin against hers. He was beautiful in a masculine way that had nothing to do with traditional aesthetics, powerful, dangerous, absolutely hers. His mouth moved from her lips to her marked throat, licking over the claiming bite with a tension that made her shudder, making satisfied sounds that were half growl, half purr. His wolf was present in every touch, every kiss, every deliberate claiming motion. When he finally positioned himself between her thighs, she was ready, wanting, needing this completion with an intensity that scared her. "I love you." He said it clearly, looking directly into her eyes, making sure she heard, understood, believed. "I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You're my everything." "I love you too." She cupped his face, pulled him down for a kiss. "My alpha, my mate, my home, I love you." When he finally made her his completely, the pain was brief, sharp, real, a moment of discomfort that made her gasp and tense, but he stilled immediately. Let her adjust, gave her time to accept the intrusion and find the pleasure underneath. His control was absolute, even though she could feel through their bond how much holding back cost him, how much he wanted to move, to claim, to take. But he waited, patient, until her body relaxed, until the pain faded and something else took its place, something that felt like completion, like two halves finally becoming whole, like destiny fulfilled in the most primal way possible. The mate bond between them flared bright, glowing so intensely the room lit up like daylight for just a moment, connecting them at a level that went beyond physical, soul deep, wolf deep, forever. They moved together, learning each other's rhythm, building toward something that felt inevitable. And when completion came, it was mutual, simultaneous, perfect. She felt him through the bond, felt his pleasure mixing with hers, felt the absolute rightness of this moment, this connection, this forever. Afterward, he held her close, both of them breathing hard, both covered in a light sheen of sweat. The mate bond between them was humming with contentment, satisfied, complete. "Mine," he breathed against her hair, "forever mine." "Yours," she pressed closer, "forever yours." He rolled to his side, pulling her with him, keeping their bodies connected. His hand found her marked throat, traced the claiming bite. "We're mated now, completely, bonded in every way possible. Tomorrow I'll present you to the pack as Luna, but tonight you're just mine, my mate, my wife, my everything." "You're everything," she smiled, let herself be held, let herself feel safe and loved and claimed. "I like the sound of that." They spoke vows then, ancient words passed down through generations, promises of protection and partnership and forever. He swore to protect her with his life, to honor her always, to stand beside her, not above her. She swore to stand with him, to support him, to be his partner in all things. Simple words but weighted with meaning, with supernatural power that made the bond between them glow brighter. When dawn came, they were still entwined, still holding each other, neither willing to break the connection, neither ready to face the world and all its demands. But eventually duty called, leadership required. The pack needed to see them, needed to know their alpha had taken a Luna. They dressed carefully, him in formal black attire that emphasized his authority, her in a deep blue dress that matched her Shadowmoon heritage while incorporating Ironpeak crimson accents. The bite marks on both their throats were impossible to miss, glowing faintly, visible proof of their bond. The courtyard was packed when dawn broke. Every member of the pack who could walk had come to witness this moment. Warriors still bandaged from yesterday's battle, some leaning on crutches, some with arms in slings, but present. Because this mattered. This was their alpha presenting his mate, their future Luna, their queen. Healers who'd worked through the night stood in their section, Rowan front and center with Lyra beside him. Elders gathered near the platform, children held by parents who wanted them to remember this day. Everyone who mattered, everyone who belonged to this pack. They stood in respectful silence as Kieran led Alara to the raised stone platform where the council waited in formal robes. Marcus wore his beta insignia. Morrison stood without his cane for the first time since the fever. A statement. The pack's strength returning, their future secured. The morning sun painted everything in gold and made the bite marks on both their throats glow faintly, visible proof of their bond that everyone could see and no one could question. Marcus stepped forward with formal bearing. His expression was neutral, but something that might have been approval or respect flickered deep in his eyes. Alpha King Kieran Blackthorn, you stand before your pack with mate claimed and bond complete. Present her formally, so all may witness and accept according to ancient law. Kieran's hand tightened on hers. She could feel through their bond his mixture of pride and possessive satisfaction and something deeper. Relief, maybe. That they'd reached this point, that she was alive and his and about to be recognized by everyone who mattered. Then he turned to face the assembled pack. His voice carried, strong, certain, absolute. The voice of an alpha who would not be questioned. I present Alara Ashwood, my mate, my Luna, your queen. She came to us as Shadowmoon's last heir, enemy bloodline, daughter of the pack we fought for 15 years. She should have been rejected, exiled, eliminated according to old grudges and older hatred. But she proved herself through action, not words, through service, not demands. He paused. Let the words sink in. Let the pack remember. She identified and treated the plague that threatened to kill every warrior in this territory. Worked for 3 days straight without rest. Saved Morrison when he was hours from death. Saved all of you when the alternative was losing half our fighting strength. She fought beside us in yesterday's battle. Her wolf emerged protecting me, protecting this pack. She killed 3 hostiles who breached our defenses, stood between me and death without hesitation. His eyes blazed brighter, his hand gripping hers tighter. She is Shadowmoon blood and Ironpeak heart. She is mine, and I am hers. She carries my claiming bite. I carry hers. We are bonded at a level that transcends politics or history or anything except the absolute certainty that we belong together. Anyone who questions her place here questions me. Anyone who challenges her challenges their alpha. Anyone who threatens her will face my wrath and my wolf and everything I am. The silence was absolute. Alara held her breath, waiting, wondering if the pack would accept this, if old hatreds would be stronger than present bonds, if she'd ever truly belong here, or if she'd always be the enemy heir they tolerated because their alpha demanded it. The fear was real, present. She'd killed people yesterday, had transformed for the first time, and ended 3 lives without hesitation. They had every reason to fear her, to reject her. Then Morrison stepped forward, moving carefully, his legs still healing, but his posture proud. The oldest warrior present, the most respected voice outside the alpha himself, the one whose opinion carried weight that transcended rank or position. She saved my life. His voice carried clearly. Worked 36 hours straight treating a fever that should have killed me. Never left my side, never gave up. When I was delirious and dangerous, she calmed me with gentle hands and softer words, made me want to live when dying would have been easier. He moved closer to the platform, his eyes finding hers, holding her gaze with something that looked like respect. She's proven her worth through the only currency that matters, blood and service and sacrifice. She's healed our sick, fought our enemies, claimed our alpha in a way that makes him stronger, not weaker. I accept her as Luna, as queen, as pack. He knelt slowly, one knee touching stone, head bowed, submission and respect combined. I am hers to command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Rowan stepped forward from the healer's section. She taught me techniques my 40 years of practice never discovered, improved my pain medications, showed my apprentices methods that will save lives for generations. She's brilliant and skilled in exactly what this pack needs. He knelt. I am hers to command. Lyra followed immediately, young face determined. She's given me knowledge my father would have been proud to learn, treated me like an equal, not a child, made me better. I am hers to command. Knelt. One by one the others followed, warriors kneeling with fists over hearts, healers bowing with hands pressed together, even the council members showing submission and acceptance they'd withheld 3 days ago when she'd stood before them as untested stranger, until the entire courtyard was on their knees before them, before their alpha and his mate, hundreds of wolves submitting to their queen. Alara's throat tightened, her eyes burned. This was real. This was acceptance, not tolerance, not political necessity, genuine respect earned through action, through proving herself when it mattered, through standing beside them and bleeding beside them and fighting beside them. She was Pack now. Luna, queen, theirs. Kieran looked at her with blazing amber eyes, pride and love and possessive satisfaction written in every line of his face. His hand squeezed hers, their bond humming with shared emotion. They accept you. You're Luna now. Queen, mine, ours. Alara looked out at the kneeling pack, at the people who'd lost friends and family to her bloodline, at the warriors who had every reason to hate her, at the healers who could have rejected her foreign techniques, and saw only acceptance, respect, the beginning of something that felt like family, like home, like the future her father had died believing was possible. She stepped forward, found her voice, let it carry across the silent courtyard. I accept this honor, this responsibility, this sacred trust you place in me. I will serve this pack with everything I am, every skill I possess, every breath in my body. I will heal your sick with the same care I'd give my own. Fight beside you with the same courage my father taught me. Stand with your alpha not as decoration but as partner. I am Luna, I am yours, and you are mine, forever. The pack howled, all of them at once, a sound that shook stone walls and echoed off distant mountains and seemed to reach up to touch the sky itself. Not submission, not just acceptance, celebration, welcome. The sound of a pack that had gained something precious, a Luna who would fight and heal and lead with equal competence, a queen who understood that royalty meant service, not privilege, a future that honored the past while refusing to be bound by it. Kieran pulled her close, kissed her in front of everyone with his hands in her hair and his wolf present in every possessive motion, claiming her publicly one final time, making absolutely certain every witness understood that she was his and he was hers, and their bond was unbreakable. When he pulled back, his smile was fierce, proud, absolutely certain. Mine, yours. She touched the mark on his throat, their bond pulsing with warmth and contentment and bone-deep satisfaction. Forever. 3 months later, Alara stood in the healing wing teaching a class of new trainees. Lyra was her second now, competent and confident. The wounded from the battle had all recovered. Morrison walked without his cane most days. The pack was stronger than ever. Kieran found her during afternoon break, stealing a moment between leadership obligations. They'd fallen into patterns, small touches in passing, stolen kisses between meetings, the comfortable intimacy of people who knew each other completely, who were building a life together one day at a time. Council wants to discuss expanding the territory. He leaned against the doorway, that same possessive watching he'd done from the beginning. The northern packs are interested in alliance. That's good. She cleaned her workspace, organized supplies with practiced efficiency. Alliance means trade, shared resources, stronger defenses. It also means you'll need to attend negotiations. He moved closer, hands finding her waist, pulling her back against his chest. As Luna, as my partner, they'll want to meet the female who united Shadowmoon and Ironpeak. I'm not sure I united anything. I just fell into the right arms at the right time. You did more than that. He pressed a kiss to her marked throat. The bite was permanent, visible, glowing faintly when emotions ran high. You showed them that cycles can be broken, that peace is possible, that sometimes the best thing you can do is choose mercy over vengeance. My father would be proud. She turned in his arms. He spent 15 years searching for what I found in 3 days with you. Home. Home. She touched his face. The mark on his throat pulsed under her fingers, their bond humming with contentment. Thank you for catching me when I fell, for claiming me when I didn't know I needed claiming, for loving me when I thought I'd never find love. Thank you for being exactly what I needed. He kissed her gently, for being strong enough to stand beside me, smart enough to challenge me, brave enough to transform to protect me. You're everything I never knew I was missing. We're disgustingly happy, she smiled. Morrison said something about it yesterday, called us insufferable. Morrison can deal with it. Kieran laughed. He's just jealous because he hasn't found his mate yet. Maybe we should help him look. Maybe we should focus on us first. His hands moved to her stomach, rested there gently. Especially since. She froze, looked up at him with wide eyes. How did you know? I can smell it. The change in your scent. Feel it through the bond. You're carrying my child. His eyes blazed brighter. Our child. My heir. Joy flooded through her, mixed with fear and excitement and wonder. I was going to tell you tonight. I wanted to be sure. Wanted to. I'm sure. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I'm absolutely sure. And I'm terrified and thrilled and so grateful I can barely stand it. You've given me everything. A mate, a partner, a future, and now a child. Our child. She held him tight. Yours and mine. Shadowmoon and Ironpeak. The future we're building. The future we've already built. He pulled back, cupped her face. I love you. More than I thought possible. More than words can express. You're my everything. I love you too. She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. My alpha, my mate, my home. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd built something beautiful from old hatred and present hope, who were creating a future that honored the past while refusing to be bound by it. Mate, partner, forever, the way it was always meant to be.